A factory sits frozen in time for 14 years. No workers, no production, no hope. Then, in a move that stunned the entire automotive world, China stepped in with $250 million and did what no Western company dared to do. This is the story of how the world's manufacturing superpower just rewrote the rules of global industry. Picture this: a sprawling industrial complex in the heart of southern Spain. Once, it hummed with activity. Assembly lines moved, welders sparked, paint booths sprayed. This wasn't just any factory, it was the economic heartbeat of an entire city. Then, everything stopped. February 2011. The machines went silent. The lights flickered off. Workers packed their tools and walked out for what they thought would be the last time. For over a decade, this massive facility stood as a monument to decline. Rust crept across the equipment, dust settled on control panels. Nature began reclaiming the parking lots. Everyone wrote it off: politicians, business analysts, the local community. This factory, they said, would never roar back to life. But on December 5th, 2024, something extraordinary happened. The gates swung open. The power surged back on. And the factory that the world forgot suddenly became the center of a geopolitical chess game that nobody saw coming. The twist? It wasn't European money that saved it. It wasn't American investment. It wasn't even a consortium of NATO-allied corporations. It was China. $270 million. A complete technology transfer. A full-scale resurrection of industrial capability. And behind it all, a strategy so bold that it's forcing the entire Western world to reconsider what they thought they knew about global manufacturing power. The local Spanish government didn't mince words. Without Beijing's intervention, they admitted, this factory might have waited another 3 to 5 years for a savior that would never come. Or worse, it would have been demolished entirely, becoming nothing more than a footnote in Spain's industrial history. But here's the question that's making economists, politicians, and industry experts lose sleep. Why would China invest a fortune to revive a European car factory that's been dead for 14 years? The answer reveals something far bigger than just one factory in one Spanish town. It exposes the seismic shift happening right now in global manufacturing, trade wars, and economic power. A shift that could redefine who controls the future of the automotive industry. To understand why this matters, we need to zoom out and look at what's been happening between China and the West over the past few years. The automobile industry has become a battlefield, and Chinese electric vehicles are the weapons that have Western powers scrambling. Europe fired the first shot. Brussels launched what they called an anti-subsidy investigation into Chinese electric vehicles. The conclusion? Slap them with tariffs. BYD got hit with an additional 17%. Geely faced 18.8%. SAIC, the steepest of all, was handed a brutal 35.3% surcharge. Then America went nuclear. Washington didn't just raise tariffs. They quadrupled them, from 25% straight up to 100%. That's not protectionism. That's a complete barricade. The message was crystal clear. Chinese EVs are not welcome here. Why such aggressive moves? Because Western automakers are terrified. For decades, they dominated. General Motors, Volkswagen, Toyota, Ford. These weren't just companies. They were institutions, symbols of industrial might. But then Chinese manufacturers did something nobody expected. They didn't just catch up. They leapfrogged. While Detroit argued about whether electric vehicles were even viable, Shenzhen was building battery gigafactories. While European boardrooms debated timelines, Chinese engineers were launching model after model, affordable, technologically advanced, packed with features that made Western competitors look outdated. By 2024, the numbers told a story that made Western CEOs sweat. China exported over 6 million vehicles. More than 1.2 million of those were electric or hybrid. For 2 straight years, China held the crown as the world's largest automotive exporter. That's not a trend. That's a takeover. And it's not just volume, it's reach. Chinese cars are now sold in over 160 countries, from the streets of Bangkok to the highways of Santiago, from Australian suburbs to Middle Eastern capitals. The Red Dragon has gone global, so when Europe and America threw up tariff walls, Chinese automakers faced a critical decision: retreat or adapt. They chose option 3, go around the walls entirely. When you can't ship your product into a market, you build it inside that market. It's a strategy as old as international trade itself. But China is executing it at a scale and speed that's unprecedented. BYD, now one of the world's largest EV manufacturers, dropped $1.7 billion into Thailand. The result? A massive production facility capable of churning out 150,000 vehicles annually. Thailand becomes a launchpad for the entire Southeast Asian market. But BYD didn't stop there. They set their sights on the heart of Europe itself. Hungary, a sprawling passenger vehicle plant, thousands of jobs created, production capacity designed to serve the entire European Union. And here's the kicker: vehicles made in Hungary are made in EU. No tariffs, no trade barriers. Direct access to 450 million consumers. Geely took a different route. They partnered with Malaysia's Proton, transforming the Southeast Asian nation into a manufacturing powerhouse for right-hand drive markets. India, Australia, the United Kingdom, Japan, all suddenly within reach through a Malaysian production base. And now, the boldest move yet, reviving a Spanish factory that's been a corpse for 14 years. Let's talk about Santana Motors. No, not Volkswagen's Santana sedan. That's a different company entirely. This Santana is pure Spanish heritage. Founded in 1956 in a small city called Linares, located in the province of Jaén in Spain's south. For decades, Santana was synonymous with rugged reliability. They didn't make family sedans. They built machines for the toughest conditions: off-road vehicles, military transport, mining equipment haulers. This was a company that thrived on durability. Their claim to fame? A decades-long partnership with Land Rover. Santana had the license to manufacture Land Rover models for the European market. The Defender, the series lineup. These weren't luxury SUVs for weekend warriors. They were workhorses. Spanish farmers used them. Military convoys relied on them. Mountain rescue teams depended on them. People called it the most reliable off-roader on the Iberian Peninsula. Through the 90s, Santana pivoted. They teamed up with Suzuki, producing compact off-roaders like the Jimny and Vitara. Sales remained strong across southern Europe and North Africa. The brand had carved out its niche. But then, the world changed. The 2000s brought urbanization. Consumers wanted fuel efficiency, comfort, technology. The market shifted towards sleek crossovers and city-friendly SUVs. Rugged, no-frills off-roaders became relics. Santana couldn't adapt fast enough. Sales plummeted, technology stagnated, debt piled up. Partners who once believed in the brand began walking away. Local government subsidies dried up. By 2010, the company was gasping for air. On February 12, 2011, Santana Motors shut down completely. Bankruptcy, liquidation, over. The factory that once employed thousands became a ghost town. Massive hangars stood empty. Conveyor belts frozen mid-operation. The city of Linares, which had built its economy around this factory, fell into economic despair. Locals described it as watching the heart of their city stop beating. For 14 years, the facility remained abandoned. Occasional news articles would mention potential buyers. None materialized. The factory became a symbol of Europe's declining industrial base, a reminder that even storied manufacturers could simply disappear until China arrived. Early 2025, a delegation of more than 20 Chinese engineers, executives, and technical specialists landed in Spain. Their mission: evaluate whether Santana could be saved. What they found was both daunting and promising. The infrastructure was old but solid. The equipment needed work but wasn't beyond repair. The location had access to ports, highways, and a workforce desperate for employment. In May, the announcement came. A Chinese consortium pledged $270 million to fully resurrect Santana Motors. The money was structured strategically. Phase 1. 5 million euros for immediate restoration. Repair the buildings, test the electrical systems, conduct safety inspections, get the facility operational again. Phase 2. The remaining funds. Restore production lines, upgrade technology, rebuild the supply chain, introduce new vehicle models designed for the European market. On December 5, 2024, it became official. The restart ceremony wasn't just symbolic, it was real. The lights turned on, machines hummed, workers returned, government officials gave speeches, media cameras captured everything. A factory written off as dead was breathing again. The Spanish government's statement was brutally honest. Without China, they said, this factory might have waited indefinitely, or been torn down completely. The revival plan is ambitious but achievable. 3 primary production lines: welding, painting, and final assembly. Initial capacity: 50,000 vehicles per year. Future expansion: up to 100,000 units depending on market demand. That might not sound massive compared to mega factories in China or America. But for Linares, a city that had been economically devastated, it's transformational. Over 1,000 direct jobs, thousands more in the supply chain, parts manufacturers, logistics companies, service providers, an entire ecosystem rebuilt from nothing. And here's where it gets even more interesting. This isn't about building old-school gas guzzlers. The new Santana is going electric. Pure EV platforms, modern battery technology, smart vehicle systems. The goal isn't to recreate the past, it's to position Santana as a European-made electric brand for the future. The first model, tentatively called the Santana 400, is designed to blend the brand's off-road heritage with zero-emission technology. Think electric Defender for the 2020s. So here's the obvious question. If reviving this factory made so much sense, why didn't European companies do it themselves? The answer cuts to the heart of Europe's industrial crisis: money. Traditional automakers are bleeding cash. Volkswagen, once the epitome of European manufacturing power, is closing factories in Germany. Stellantis is slashing jobs. Renault is restructuring. Ford Europe has been in retreat for years. Transitioning from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles requires staggering investment. Battery plants, new assembly lines, charging infrastructure, software development. The costs are astronomical. European automakers don't have spare billions lying around to gamble on resurrecting old factories. They're struggling to keep their existing operations afloat. Then there's the capital flight problem. Major manufacturers had already abandoned southern Spain. Suzuki pulled out. Nissan withdrew. Even Land Rover, Santana's historic partner, had long since moved on. No European company saw the business case. No Japanese manufacturer wanted the risk. No American firm considered it worth the trouble. The factory sat there, unwanted, like an industrial orphan. But China? China saw opportunity. Let's rewind 15 years. Around 2010, Chinese electric vehicles were, honestly, a punchline. Western media mocked them, calling them, golf carts with doors, electronic junk, and cheap knockoffs with no future. Industry experts were so sure that China would remain a secondary player, forever copying but never really innovating. But wow, they couldn't have been more wrong. Between 2015 and 2020, something extraordinary happened. China made a national commitment to electric vehicle leadership, not just as policy, but as a full-blown industrial strategy. Billions poured into research battery chemistry, electric drivetrains, vehicle platforms, autonomous systems, and charging networks. KTL emerged as the world's dominant battery manufacturer. BYD developed the Blade battery, which was a real technological breakthrough, totally redefining safety and efficiency standards. NIO introduced battery swap technology, while XPeng pioneered advanced driver assistance. What started as government-subsidized experimentation actually became genuine technological leadership. By 2021, Chinese EVs weren't just competitive, they were superior. Longer range, faster charging, better software, and of course more affordable. The 2024 numbers are honestly staggering. Over 6 million vehicle exports. 1.28 million of those are electric or hybrid. That's 2 consecutive years as the world's #1 automotive exporter. Chinese cars are everywhere now, not just in developing markets, but in Europe, Australia, South America, and even, despite the tariffs, in North America through secondary channels. This isn't a fluke. This is industrial policy executed with precision over a decade. And now, that capability is being weaponized in a new way: factory resurrections. So, why would China spend $270 million on a Spanish factory instead of, just building something brand new? 3 words: trade barrier circumvention. When Chinese vehicles are manufactured in China and exported to Europe, they face tariffs, investigations, origin rules, bureaucratic obstacles designed specifically to slow them down. But a vehicle manufactured in Spain, that's made in EU. No tariffs, no extra scrutiny, direct access to the entire European market. It's honestly kind of brilliant. China isn't trying to fight the tariff system. They're making it irrelevant. There's a second reason: brand perception. In a lot of European markets, made in China still carries a stigma. Fair or not, perceptions of quality remain a barrier. But made in Spain, made in Hungary, that changes everything. European consumers trust European manufacturing. Government procurement programs favor locally produced vehicles. Tax incentives reward companies creating local jobs. By building in Europe, Chinese brands aren't just avoiding tariffs. They're transforming their entire market positioning. There's also a strategic calculation about industrial hollowing. Europe is losing manufacturing capacity. Factories are closing. Jobs are disappearing. Governments are desperate for investment. China is offering exactly what Europe needs: capital, technology, employment, and in return, a foothold in one of the world's richest markets. What's happening at Santana isn't isolated. It's a template. Watch what unfolds over the next 5 years. Chinese automotive investment will continue flooding into Europe, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa. Every tariff wall will be bypassed. Every trade barrier will be circumvented, not through aggression, but through localized production. This is the new playbook for global manufacturing dominance, and it has Western policymakers, well, pretty panicked. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Tariffs don't stop Chinese manufacturing capability. They just redirect it. You can block imports. You can't block investment. And once Chinese companies are manufacturing inside your borders, they're no longer foreign. They're local employers, tax contributors, political constituencies. European politicians who champion tariffs now face a dilemma. Do they block Chinese investment too? That means fewer jobs, less manufacturing, more economic decline. Do they welcome it? That means acknowledging that Europe needs China more than China needs Europe. It's a lose-lose scenario created by the very protectionist policies meant to shield European industry. The revival of Santana Motors is more than a business story. It's a symbol of shifting global power, of industrial strategy executed with patience and precision, of how economic warfare gets fought in the 21st century. 14 years ago, that factory closed because nobody believed it had a future. Today, it's reopening because China sees what Europe missed: opportunity. The workers returning to those assembly lines aren't just building cars. They're part of a grand experiment in economic reordering. Can Chinese manufacturing reshape global supply chains? Can local production erase the stigma of foreign brands? Can investment become the ultimate form of soft power? The Santana factory will answer those questions. And whatever happens, there will ripple across every industry, every market, every country watching this unfold. Because if China can resurrect a dead factory in Spain, what else can they rebuild? Where else will they go next? The age of Western industrial dominance lasted a century. The age of Chinese manufacturing might just be beginning. And the most remarkable part? Nobody saw it coming until the factories started coming back to life. The world is changing faster than most people realize. What seemed impossible yesterday becomes reality today. And tomorrow? That's anyone's guess. If stories like this matter to you, if understanding the forces reshaping our world is something you value, then stick around. We're just getting started. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because the next chapter of this story is already being written. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Thanks for watching. And remember, in the game of global economics, the rules are being rewritten every single day. The only question is, are you paying attention?